we wanted to give you as much time as possible to ask your questions. It doesn't have to be Strasburg related anymore. So, or it can be if you were shy earlier. So at this point, we'll turn it over to you. You can ask us literally anything you want, and we'll go from there. Right here.
Wesley with the Freedom Cardboard. I've got a question that came up today when I was walking the floor about patches. We see a lot of fake patches out there. Is something you've thought about a system of scanning them on the way out so that collectors can know, okay, I bought this patch on eBay. I can look it up in Topps' database and see, yeah, this is in fact the one that came from you guys and not someone doctoring it up in their basement.
I don't know candidly that we've specifically thought about that. I can tell you on our end, everything we put in products is legitimate. We have to go through layers and layers. The leagues will only allow us to deal with certain vendors. So I feel completely confident on our end that what we're putting on our product is legitimate, 100%. I think the concern and what happens is then you get crafty people who are manipulating the cards, and it's interesting. I don't know what process we can put in up front to minimize that, and it sounds like you have an idea that we haven't thought about, and we're certainly open to it. I don't know the logistics and what is involved, but certainly we should talk afterwards. And if there are models that don't completely kill our business, we're interested in, obviously, the integrity of this business is important to you guys, and it's important to us as well.
Yeah.
I sat down with Ryan Metzer from Yahoo Sports. Sat down with Ryan Gray, who bought the Stroudsburg Superfractor today. What do you think a card like that means? That card. What do you think that means to the industry? What do you think that card did for the industry this year?
Well, it's gotten the industry a ton of publicity, and probably as much publicity I've seen this hobby get in like 20 years, and it's good publicity. You know, a lot of times, and I started out with Topps and PR, so I know how publicity can go. And a lot of times, you know, these stories that we've seen in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of negative stories about our hobby and about, you know, stuff that's counterfeit. And we were talking about patches and stuff like that. And everyone always wants to talk about how the industry is going down and how there's no kids. The Strasburg thing is such a bright spot. So regardless of where the Strasburg card goes, regardless of who buys it, every time someone makes a big deal about it, it's a plus for all of us.
Just to build on that, from a marketing perspective, like Clay said, we got just millions of impressions. We're able to measure how much the impressions would be in terms of ad sales. And that card would generate over $5 million of basically ad sales and impressions for us, which is a huge amount of money. And to me, I think like what it's brought back is this notion that you can spend $3, $4 a pack, and you can hit the lottery. While I don't like to get too involved with secondary market, and I realize what it does and how important it is, it sort of brings back, like, you know, the old days where, you know, this dream and this $3 that, you know, I can make it big. And I think that's really resonated with everyone beyond just this room, and just with sort of non-collectors and that magic it's sort of created, and obviously the results have been unbelievable.
Thanks.
Right here in the front.
Yeah. Forget the Strasburg hype for a minute. And what is your primary age group that you're targeting for a new collector?
I'll take a crack at that. We actually have two different audiences.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have many audiences, and that's what's interesting about this hobby. You have set collectors. I mean, within audiences, you have segments: player collectors, set collectors, team collectors, autograph collectors. So it's a really complicated business, but at its core, the way we define the market is we have adult collectors and we have kid collectors. And it's a bit challenging because obviously they're completely different. And what we're trying to do is create products and marketing plans that speak to each. So when we look at kids, we have Topps Attacks. And I don't know that any of you are big Topps Attacks collectors, but Topps Attacks is a card game for kids. So it has the elements that make card games and products for kids successful: competition, play pattern, etc. And we market it to kids, and we do demos and we do sampling. So we're looking at Attacks being our kids brand. Certainly we hope that they segue into the Topps brand, and hopefully as they mature and they're older, then they get more into the high-end stuff. But that's the kids, and then we have an adult collector. And, you know, the adult collector is more obviously hobby-driven. Even within the adult collector, you know, there's light users, there's heavy users, there's retail people, there's hobby people, but at the end of the day, it's an adult collector. And I think the million card giveaway really was intended to be our adult collector tactic. And the hope on that would be that it would both help current collectors buy more cards in terms of frequency, but also the notion of vintage cards with anyone in their 20s, 30s, and 40s sort of reconnects them with the business. And I think what we've successfully seen is a lot of lapsed collectors who did collect when they were 20 or 30 and left, or 15, coming back now because it's sort of the notion of reconnecting with those old cards and reconnecting with sort of their childhood, which everyone at some point wants to do, has brought them back into collecting. So that's really helped us with lapsed collectors and our current adult collectors. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, it just seems so hard with, I mean, I grew up with two boys, one 14, one 16.
Yeah.
And it's just such a challenge, as much as many cards as I have.
Yeah.
And, you know, I collected when I was a kid. It seems it's got to be a really high hurdle for you guys to get kids back into the market because, I mean, they're surrounded by it and it's not on the top of their list. And it kind of disappoints me as much as it is you. And I don't know, I don't see it changing.
I think, you know, you're right. I mean, I wish there were an easy answer to it, and ultimately, I think all of us recognize it would benefit us. I mean, for any collector, you know, the more collectors, the better, obviously, for everyone. It's a challenge. I mean, you're right. I mean, kids are playing online. I mean, there's technology. You know, baseball and its affinity with kids is less than it used to be. Fewer kids are playing baseball at the youth level. Those are all things against us. So for me to sit here and say, oh, you know, we got to figure it out and it's easy, would be wrong. But I do think one fundamental shift we've done with the Attacks brand is instead of trying to push our current portfolio of products, even Topps Series 1, which at the end of the day, a lot of kids get into research and they're like, I don't know what to do with these cards. I don't know how to, you know, they just don't get it. Or at least with the Attacks, it's more familiar with them with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And they get it, and they get the gameplay. And even if they're not huge baseball fans, they like the idea of interacting in gameplay. The Attacks brand is in its second year. While it hasn't been hugely successful, where we've marketed the product, where we've spent significant dollars with sampling and demo, we've seen it perform very well. Our challenge is to build on that and to invest heavier in it and to go big. But to be fair, I don't know that our baseball cards are going to be, you know, what online gaming is. That's $1 billion industry. You know, our whole industry is less than that. But I do think with Attacks, we have an opportunity to bring in kids at a much better success rate than we had trying to push Topps and more adult brands to kids.
Yeah, and in addition to that too, what I'm seeing is a lot of consumer consumption from kids actually going after the Topps base brands. You know, especially now that they're going to have the opportunity. You know, the hype on Strasbourg, in fact, Strasbourg has actually created a lot of interest with kids, and they're starting to see what these cards are selling for. You know, and the one thing, having been here for a good bit of years, I've seen this business cycle several different times, and this cycle is somewhat of a phenomenon. This is bigger than the pool house years, and what we're counting on is that kids will see what these things, you know, what's happening with Strasbourg, what's taking place with Strasbourg, and will start to become part of that action as well. Topps base brand, you know, $2 a pack on average is a great introductory brand for kids. So we are seeing some increased consumption on the Topps base brands as well.
I hope that can